the Book Baron. Welcome in, everybody. Today, we are hopefully going to keep all the lighting. I got a little bit of a late start. But today, I wanted to talk to you about books that I never seem to be in the mood for. Books that have been on my TBR, they survived the cleanouts, and yet somehow I just never can seem to get myself to actually read them. Like, I want to be the person that's already read them. Like, I have FOMO that I'm not that person already, and yet somehow I just never quite get to the stage where I'm actually reading the book. Finally getting to Midnight Sun, which was a book that I just never seemed to be able to get myself to read, and yet it was perpetually on my TBR, and now I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh, I should have read it sooner. These are the books that are probably similar. Without further ado, let's just jump into the books that I wish I could get myself to read. So the first one that I have for you is The Brit by Jodi Malpas, I think is her last name. It's a dark mafia romance. It's captive, and this is first in an interconnected series, I believe. What we got going on here is we got Rose, who's our heroine, and she's kind of floating through life. She's feeling numb, much like Linkin Park. But it sounds like she's kind of had like a tough life and is just trying to survive. Things really get interesting and turned upside down for her when she is taken as collateral by the very notorious Danny Black, also known as the Brit, hence the title, in some sort of power move. And this ends up stirring up some long suppressed feelings in her. Fear, yes, but also horny ones. And this develops into this like twisted sort of attraction. He starts realizing as he has her captive that she's kind of got this mask on and enjoys poking at her facade. And you know, something that's supposed to just remain business is not remaining so. This one sounds like it should be right up my alley, right? It's mafia, it's captive, we got a sad bitch heroine. I love that. And it's even got good ratings on Goodreads. Lots of my friends really liked it. But,
And here we have Kevin modeling our latest version of the Daisy Cone. It has features such as being machine washable and preventing this idiot from scratching himself bloody. So anyways, for anyone who's not up to speed on Kevin and why he's in a cone, he's got allergies, he scratches himself. This cone is gonna make a few appearances. Buckle in and enjoy his silly little face.
you know, this was like a thing for me for a while, which was that I just fell out of the mafia mood entirely. And so for the longest time, I was just straight up not picking up mafia books. And I think I've honestly still really struggled to be interested in mafia series that fall outside of ones that I'm already reading or authors that I know and love, because they all sound the same. So there's nothing for me to really like hook onto where I'm like, ah, yes, this is the one that really is speaking to me right now, because there's not a lot to sink my teeth into. And I think on top of that, I feel like I've just missed the boat on this one a little bit, because although this is well loved by a lot of my friends, they really don't talk about it anymore. And there are other mafia series that they'll refer me to. So I'm like, is it one that's just good in the moment? So I've just have never quite gotten myself like hyped enough to actually read that one. Next up is one I own physically, and that is From Lukov with Love with Mariana Zapata. This is an enemies to lovers sports romance. It's slow burn because it's Mariana. This is about Jasmine, who's had a rough handful of years with her career, and she's kind of recognizing that she's pretty close to the end of it. So she really wants to go out with a bang, have a good last couple of seasons with her professional career, and so she ends up getting paired up with a very unlikely person, Auden Lukov, and she's gonna start competing in pairs instead of solo for ice skating. Did I mention that this is about ice skating? This is about ice skating. But this is a very odd matchup between her and Auden, because they have pretty much been nemesis ever since they've known each other. So why am I never in the mood for this bad boy? I mean, it's Mariana Zapata. I know that I like her. I love a good slow burn, enemies to lovers, and yet part of the reason that I have a hard time hyping myself up for this one. I haven't read anything about ice skating, so it feels like a little bit outside of the typical sports romances that I've read before.
Well, actually, not to be that person, but I just do not feel like I articulated myself all that well. And so I want to just like clarify this a little bit. It's not that it's like outside of a normal sports romance. It's that like I don't think of it when it comes to sports romance, right? Like when I feel like I'm in the mood for a sports romance, I think hockey, I think football, I think different sports. And so I'm never like, you know what I should read? An ice skating romance. It's got a slow burn, because then I also got to be in the mood for that. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that because I feel like I made no sense and it was really frustrating me. And anyways, back to the video.
And then on top of that, I know with Mariana's slow burns, it takes a while to get going. So I have to really hype myself up to be able to sit through about a third of the book where I know that not a ton is really happening. So we got that slow burn. It's lots of subtle messaging. It's a lot of the same scenes over and over again. again. And so I really have to get myself locked in. And lately I've just been needing something that I know will grip my attention. The other thing that is really honestly probably the biggest thing preventing me from really reading this, and the reason I'm never in the mood for it, is because I really feel like this is the last great that I haven't read in her backlist. There's lots of other books, but they don't seem to rise to the level of Wall of Winnipeg and Culty, All Roads Lead Here. This is kind of the last one of that bunch, and so I'm really putting off reading this one because the rest of her backlist has kind of been hit and miss. So that's kind of why I just never really find myself in the mood for this one. Next up is one that I think people will be surprised that I haven't read, and it is Credence by, hello Kevin, back to Credence by Penelope Douglas. This is one that I'm sure most people probably think that I have read, but I haven't. So this is a dark romance, and a lot of people are coy about whether this is a love triangle, or I don't know what's more legs than a triangle, a square I suppose. Well, not all of them go back to the same point. That's all circular. You know what? Thinking too much about this. People kind of dance around whether this is love triangle or a why choose. I think based on the description, it sounds like she does pick one of them at the end, so I'm operating under such assumption. This is about Tiernan, who tragically loses her parents, who are this kind of Hollywood power couple. Her mom is a starlet and her dad, I think, is a director or producer or something along those lines. She's grown up in a life of privilege, but without a ton of supervision from her parents because they kind of sent her off to boarding school. So she's always felt a little bit overshadowed by their fame and their presence. But they end up passing in a very devastating way, and there's really nowhere for her to go. She's almost 18, so she just needs a guardian for a couple of months. So she ends up going to live out in the middle of nowhere in Colorado with her father's only living relative, his stepbrother. And he could not live more of an opposite life. He's got two sons named Noah and Caleb, and they have to teach her how to survive in their world where they are often very isolated and very cut off. And when they're out in the woods by themselves, lines start getting blurred. And it says in here that one of them has her, the other wants her, but he's gonna keep her. I'm gonna assume that means that she picks one in the end. So why am I never in the mood for this one? So Penelope Douglas really has to get a lot of props because she was one of the first authors that I really turned to in my foray into dark romance. Punk 57 and Birthday Girl were the ones that I first read from her. And while I really love her concepts, I don't always get along with her execution. And the more I've read from her, the more I kind of average around a 3-star rating for her. They're really solid and I still enjoy them, but they're not this immense love because nothing has really lived up to those initial books. I have several friends that say that this is their fave from her, so I do have some hope. It's also one that people really like to clown on because she took some risks. But I think because I've read kind of similar concepts, not only from Penelope Douglas herself, but also from Pam Godwin, it's hard to get hyped about something that I feel like I've already read. And yet I'm so nosy, I gotta know what happens in here because people talk about this one a whole lot. People love to hate it, and people also really just enjoy it. So I gotta know what all the fuss is about. But I think because I've already read kind of similar books, it's hard to get myself in the mood and hyped up for a book that feels like something I've kind of already read. Next up, I have A Heart as Black as Coal, and this is by Cory Zahara. This is a dark rock star romance, and because it's Cory Zahara, I'm just gonna warn you, it's gonna be hella dark. She goes pitch black. So this is about Remington. He's our hero, and he wants to be successful. He wants to be this talented rock star, and he's got the voice and the presence to become one. But he ends up in this twisted scenario where he's used as a pawn to lure his fans into a human situation, which is something Cory Zahara just loves to write about. But that starts to change when he encounters one gal by the name of Kat. And he really starts to fall for her and really starts caring about her, wants to make sure that she stays safe. But because he's always indulging in drugs and alcohol to numb some of the trauma and pain that he's experiencing, she slips right through his fingers. And now he's determined to go find her, even if it takes years. Why am I never in the mood for this one? So I love Cory Zahara. I love to go deep, dark, get gritty. She doesn't shy away from that. Darkness Beyond the Daisies is easily one of the darkest books I've ever read. But I think part of what stops me with her books is the fact that it is so dark. You have to be in such a specific mood for that. And then on top of that, Rockstar isn't my favorite trope. So there's two things that I really have to be in the mood for very simultaneously to feel lured into this. And I know the second that I picked this one up, this is going to be one that I wished I read sooner. It's just one of those that it's such a specific mood that's really hard to get myself to grab this book when those two intersect. Next up is The Lovely Return, and this is by Carrie Ann Cole. This is a slow burn that's about reincarnation, maybe, or mental health, depending on how you look at this, and age gap. Alex, our hero, is a reclusive artist who has been mourning the loss of his wife and seems to just be kind of stuck in time since her passing. But he encounters this young girl that seems to have this very active imagination that seems to have some memories that overlap with his wife's. And as she grows up, their friendship deepens, and so do these flashes of memories that she seems to have when she touches his late wife's things. She has these flickers, these visions even, and feelings start stirring, and it becomes almost impossible to deny. Either she clearly has a mental health disorder and some delusions, or she isn't imagining this and she really was his wife in another life. I was so excited about this one when it came out. I love the idea of a romance that transcends time, that it plays out across multiple lifetimes. I love the idea of reincarnation, although personally I do not want it for myself. One lifetime is enough, thank you. Unless I'm coming back as a cat, in which case, yeah, sign me up. But all that to say, this is one that is a little bit softer than what I usually tend to read. It's more emotional, and honestly, I genuinely just forget about this book. And I know that the author has even said that she has had some issues marketing this book because it is so different. And I think she even changed the cover at one point in order to try and pull in an audience. But I think because it's a little bit softer, it's a little bit more emotional, I have to be in a specific mood for that in the first place. Like, I'm just a dark romance reader to my core. But then on top of that, this just is one that ends up kind of getting buried in my TBR, and about the time that I find it, I'm not in a soft and emotional mood at that point. And so then I'm like, oh, I'll save that again for when I'm in the mood for that, and then it gets buried again. So it's just this like cycle for me that I'm like, I know I can strike at some point, but I have to actually remember that the book exists for that to happen. Next up, I have Maestro, and this is by Auden Dar. This is a friends to lovers, second chance, right person, wrong time, I'm assuming, just based on the synopsis. So this is about our heroine, Aurelia, and she meets this very confident and magnetic Chadwick, which I immediately hate that his name is fucking Chad. That's not a good name. Anyway, off topic. They meet at an audition and immediately just seem to connect on this very soul deep level. And so they go through these awkward teen years of first love. Kevin, stop licking my foot, please. He's like right here wanting to lick my little toes. It's so gross, dude. So they have this awkward first love in all these practice rooms and late night because they both have this shared passion for music. But I'm assuming that this is right person, wrong time because it says like years later, Chad is this very famous pianist. He is known as the Maestro. He's this tattooed, brilliant, and haunted man. Aurelia is now a renowned cellist and has remained his muse and greatest love, but it seems that the higher the highs, the lower the lows. So this is all gonna come crashing down around them. So why am I never in the mood for this one? Well, for one, this is a big book. And you know, as much as I've gotten over a lot of my big book fear, I still find that it holds me back, especially when I'm talking about taking a risk on a new author or on a concept that, you know, genuinely isn't one that I'm typically drawn to. As much as I love reading about artists and I love to get in the emotions, these softer books take me a while to really get in the mood. And then also, just having been burned by a love letter to whiskey and not loving that as much as I kind of assumed, I do worry that this one will fall into this camp of like too much miscommunication and misunderstanding. And I think a little bit of that fear holds me back from really giving in when the mood strikes me to read this one. Next up, there is, oh God, can you see Kevin's little cone right here? He's just vibing, he's hanging out. All right, next up I have Where There's a Will, and this is by Jessie Walker. So this is an second chance dark romance. And one of our heroes is the guy that everyone warns you about. He's reckless, he's wild. Everyone's just kind of waiting for this man to crash and burn. There's this like kind of addiction to chaos and emotional walls that he's built up over the years as a result. But when Will Foster, the boy from his past, reappears, everything for him starts to unravel. And what was once kind of dismissed as like a fluke, a mistake, accidental, nothing that real, right? Starts really coming to the surface. And Will wants to love him, wants to see past his addictions and chaos and pain. But how do you love someone that's just refusing to be saved? This, once again, falls into the camp of it's long and it's emotional, and that is a hard mood for me to get into. This is one that I've seen my friends absolutely eat up, but oh baby, not only is this book long, it's a duet. So I don't even get the full story in the first book. So I think that that's really challenging to be in that mood. And so many of my friends' reviews are something to the effect of like, pain is all I've ever known and I'll never be the same again. And look, I did love the Torment duet, which does kind of fall into a similar camp here. But wow, is that like a series that I love and hope to never read again. So again, this one's just really tricky because it kind of falls in this gray area of long book, more emotional. And I think right now when I'm just looking for something that hooks me immediately, that I can get through a little bit quicker, that maybe it's just some rich boys doing some dumb shit, it's hard to get in the mood for something to just emotionally destroy you. Next, I have one from a series that I love, and it's The Good Girl by Nikki Sloan. This is book 5 in the Nashville Neighbors series. This is like good girl, as the title suggests, bad boy, brother's best friend. This one is about Sydney, and she's a good girl that wants to go bad. Girls go bad. She kind of wants to piss off her parents, and who better to do it with than her brother's best friend, Preston, to help her, because he's got a little bit of a reputation, and if you've read the series, you know. So she asked Preston to fake date her, and you know, while they're at it, they might as well get rid of that V card that she's been dealing with and have him show her everything she's been missing out on. But Preston's kind of in a tough spot, right? Because as hot as this proposition is, Colin is his best friend and also his business partner, and so this kind of puts him in a weird place. Despite his reputation, he doesn't want to burn this bridge. But the thing is, like, you know, if he doesn't do it, someone else will. So like, isn't he kind of the good guy if he gives in? So this sounds right up my alley, right? Fake dating, sexy lessons. This is stuff that I absolutely love, and I've adored many books in this series, but I just can't bring myself to finish this series, especially after The Frat Boy, which is like my absolute favorite from this series. Do we even want to finish it? Maybe we want to save this for a rainy day, something to come back to. But I think what really holds me back from really indulging in a lot of Nikki Sloan's books is it is a high level of spice, which is not something I typically seek out. Sometimes I stumble across it accidentally, but for the most part, it's not something I really seek out, even though I feel like she really excels at using it as part of the relationship. It's just one of those that, again, the high spice mood is a very specific one, and most of the time I end up accidentally getting that out of my system with another book anyway. So that's why I'm never in the mood for that one. Next up, we have Menace, and this is by J.M. Darhower. This is a mafia romance, and this is about Lorenzo, who is quite bored, to be quite frank. He doesn't like most people, and he often gets judged by a lot of them because he has a very long scar that disfigures part of his face. And so people think of him as being very scary. They even call him Scar. And they make up crazy rumors that he's a psychopath and stay away from him. And, you know, the psychopath part might be true, but mind your business. So one day he ends up bumping into this woman that is similarly fed up with life, but for very different reasons. She's got a little bit of a scarlet letter and also some secrets, and she seems to be on the run from something, and Lorenzo is determined to figure out what's going on with her. This is an author that I want to read from so badly because I hear nothing but fantastic things about their writing. It's a mafia romance. It's something that I've definitely come back around to. Again, a little bit similar to the Brit, where it's like it's hard to want to take a chance in a new author when I already have mafia series that I know and love, but I digress. I think in particular with this synopsis, there's just not a lot to grab onto that is unique or really pulls me in. And I think because it doesn't really have that hook, it's often overlooked on my my TBR. So when I go through my TBR, I kind of flick through and I'm like, oh yeah, that book. I do want to get to it. But again, because it doesn't have that thing for me to like sink my teeth into, I think I just kind of forget that it exists. Next up, I have Come Undone, and this is by Jessica Hawkins. This is the first in the Cityscape series, and this is like supposed to be a very dramatic and soapy contemporary. So this is about Olivia, and she has everything that she thought she wanted: stable marriage, loyal friends, thriving career. She's checked all the boxes, right? But she ends up locking eyes with a guy by the name of David, and he is dangerously charming. He is a stranger to her at this very crowded event, but something inside her shifts after this meeting. He seems to be able to see past this very polished exterior that she has, right to the parts that she thought she had so successfully buried. And David is really the opposite of everything safe, everything that she sought up to this point. He is this kind of like alleged playboy. He's an unapologetic flirt, but suddenly he's challenging Olivia to question life and to maybe even undo all this hard work. So where's the line between desire and betrayal? Why am I never in the mood for this one? this is soapy, this is very dramatic, this sounds very emotional, but the one thing that always stops me from reading this book is that it is a proper series. Ugh, I just, for whatever reason, cannot bring myself to want to read proper series following a couple for multiple books, especially because I've noticed a trend with me that when I read a 3-book series about the same couple, I drop off after book 2. Almost always. I never finish, whether it's because I don't want to fully be wrapped up with that series or it's because I simply get burnt out. I just never seem to finish the series. And so I feel like I'm setting myself up for failure. So I know at some point I'll get the urge because I've read other series that follow the same couple before. I've done it and I'll do it again. But I've just noticed that I kind of get stuck at that second book. And so it makes me a little bit more nervous about diving into this series. But I have heard really good things that it's like very angsty and dramatic. And so that's why it never quite comes off my TBR. All right, next up we have one that I'm sure is going to ruffle some feathers, and that is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. So this is a sports romance. It's new adult, friends to lovers. And the long and short of this is that we have Johnny Kavanaugh, and he has everything on paper. He's a rugby player, he's popular, he's got this very bright future. And behind the scenes, he's actually hiding a pretty serious injury that he's been dealing with that's actually threatening a lot of the success that he has been able to claw for himself in his little high school. And so he really just can't get distracted by anything. And that's where Shannon Lynch comes in. So she's used to being invisible, or not even invisible, sometimes straight up a target. She is hoping to come to Tommen and get a little bit of a clean slate. She dealt with some bullying previously, but she just wants to stay under the radar. She doesn't want to be a target anymore. Fate has other plans, and so does Johnny. From their first meeting, it's clear that there's some sort of connection here, and it grows into this unexpected friendship. And especially as Johnny is kind of peeling back her layers, he's realizing there's some bruises, there's a person there that he really wants to protect, and Shannon realizes he's not quite the heartless jock that she thought he was. But everything is truly stacked against them. Okay, so this one has a double whammy, and I think if you've been paying attention, you can probably hazard some guesses as to why this one is one I'm never in the mood for, and that is because it's emotional and it's long. It's part of a duet. This is only the first book about the same couple. And again, kind of similar to the 3-book series, 2 chunky books. I feel like I'm gonna burn out at some point on these. And again, it's long, it's emotional. It's also taking place in high school, which isn't always something I'm really seeking out, unless it's very dramatic, unrealistic, unhinged even, versus like this, I kind of get the sense is gonna be a little bit more realistic high school. I think that's kind of a tough thing to want to read, especially at my big age. Plus, I think I got turned off a little bit with all of the hype and controversy that was kind of around this book, but I know this is one that I'll get to eventually because my sister harasses me about it all the time. And sometimes I even feel that little like sneaking urge where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna grab it this time. And then I always hesitate because, oh my God, that's so thick. That's why I'm never in the mood for Binding 13. All right, next up we have Forbidden, and this is by Tabitha Suzuma. This is a realistic dark romance. It's more YA. It's extremely taboo, and I don't think has an HEA. So this is about Lachlan and Maya, and they have kind of always been more than siblings. They're best friends, they're co-parents as they try and navigate life with their younger siblings and take responsibility for them in a house that's often neglectful and more often than not dysfunctional. At ages 17 and 16, they've really taken on a lot more adult responsibilities than any teen really should have to bear. And in this kind of pressure cooker of their home life, they find that they're having more and more complicated feelings around love, and not the sibling kind. These feelings are so real, they're so raw, they're so all-consuming. They know it's wrong, and as they struggle with the guilt and the longing and these just impossible choices, their story races towards a very devastating ending. So I think you can see why this one would be a tough one to be in the mood for, because I know that I am signing up for heartache. I don't believe this has a true HEA in every sense of the world, and that's kind of tricky just given the topic, but it's one that I think would deal with a lot of trauma and I think could be really fascinating and interesting. And yet I do worry about the YA aspect coming across as too young for dealing with this topic. So I struggle with this one because I feel like it could be really dark and it could be really emotional, but then, I have the YA aspect in the back of my mind and I always think like, oh, well, how deep can it really go? But I think you can see why this is one that I never can quite bring myself to bring off of my TBR. I am so intrigued by this because I think that it really is dealing with something very tricky and something that I think will hopefully be handled well. All right, and our last one for this video, lucky number 13, we have Ivy by Willa Nash, or in this case, it's Devney Perry. So this is a romantic thriller, and it's new adult. So this one is described as something along the lines of like Gossip Girl meets Pretty Little Liars, and it takes place at Aston University. It's very prestigious, very wealthy, and it's got a lot of secrets. Sure, girl. Secrets. It centers on 3 gals living at this place called Clancy Manor, and it says a bunch of nonsense, to be totally honest, but there's 2 roommates playing the game for years, masters of the ruse, and a 3rd roommate that is new, and it sounds like it's a shady hoe with secrets. I put in the shady hoe part. So we've got Kasha, the outsider, Alora, the ice princess, and Ivy, the puppet master. I imagine it mostly centers on Ivy then? I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna love and hate Ivy, but why am I never in the mood for this one? This one is tricky because it really sounds like more of a thriller than a romance. And I'm gonna be honest, I always wanna read something that's more of a romance than any other subgenre. Like even when it comes to like thrillers or sci-fi, I go to pick them up and then I'm like, but I could be reading a romance. And I always kind of have that in the back of my mind. And I think because this centers on 3 gals and not like a single relationship, even like some romantic thrillers, I just have a hard time wanting to pick it up because I know it's gonna have more of that thriller feel. And although really entertaining, I just want a romance, baby. I'm a simple gal. And so I think that's why I always have a really hard time getting in the mood and wanting to pick this one up. But I love thrillers. I love mystery. I love dark academia. I love secrets. I like messy stuff. So that's why it just never really comes off my TBR. So those are the 13 books that I wish I had already read. I wish I could get myself in the mood for. I have FOMO about, and yet I just never seem to be in the mood for. But I would love to hear from you. If you've read any of these books, fight for your faves in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys love about these books, if you've read them. And let me know what's on your TBR that you just feel like you're never in the mood for, but you really do have the best of intentions of reading at some point, but it just never seems to be the right time. I would love to hear that from you. And with all of that, thank you so much for being here. Do not forget to like this video if you did at any point end up liking it, and don't forget to subscribe if you would like more content from me. I'd really love to see your face again, and I really hope I see you on my next video. Bye bye.